Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're taking a look today at the Roku Streambar. This is a compact soundbar that has a Roku media player built in, and it's a lot smaller than the soundbar that we looked at last year from Roku, which is still available, and that requires a lot more room under your TV. So if you're more space constrained and you wanted something a little bit louder, this definitely might be worth looking at. And I found these to be really helpful, not only just to upgrade your sound experience, but also for folks that have a hard time hearing TV dialogue out of their existing television speakers. This will focus the audio directly at you in a way that will sound better than your TV speakers. And there is some settings that you can adjust on here as well to even enhance the dialogue further. So if you have friends or family that are really having a hard time hearing the TV, this might be a good solution. Now, I do want to let you know, in the interest of full disclosure, this came in free of charge from Roku. However, all the opinions you're about to hear are my own. No one is paying for this review, nor has anyone reviewed or approved what you're about to see before it was uploaded. So let's get into it now and see what this device is all about. Now, the price point on this is $129.99. This costs less than the larger soundbar that they offer, and of course, it's also a lot smaller. Now, there are 4 speakers on this. They are all 1.9-inch full-range drivers. You have 2 speakers here on the left and the right in the center, and the other 2 are located on the sides of the device. And I found that if you have a smaller room, this will sound better than it will in a larger room. And the reason is that you can get some enhancement by the sound bouncing off the walls. But it doesn't sound as rich in a larger room where the walls might be farther away from the device. So if you are in a larger space, I think that larger soundbar makes more sense. But in a smaller space, like a bedroom or a small living room or something, this will work pretty well, I think. The sound quality is good out of it. It's got a good amount of bass, but not deep bass. Roku does offer a subwoofer that can connect up with this system wirelessly that will give you that deep booming bass if you want it. They also have rear surround sound speakers that you can also pair up with it to get the full surround effect. But on its own, it is pretty much just a stereo device that will, of course, enhance the dialogue and audio better than what your TV might be able to deliver. Now, due to its small size, I didn't hear all that much stereo separation. The speakers are not that far apart from each other, and as a result, you're not going to really hear that separation you might get out of a larger soundbar. Now, it connects to your television via HDMI. Most TVs in the last 10 or 15 years will have that. It supports 720p TVs, 1080p TVs, and 4K televisions with a caveat, which I will get to in a minute. Now, what I suggest you do is, of course, connect the HDMI connector here to your television, but I would also make sure that you plug it into a port that's labeled ARC on your TV. ARC stands for Audio Return Channel. And if you hook this up to an ARC port on your TV, usually a TV has just one of those ports labeled ARC, all of the audio from the television set will come back out through the speaker, even if you're not in Roku mode. So that means if you have a game console connected to one of the other HDMI ports, its audio will go back through the TV and out through this speaker versus the internal speakers on the television. So you can use this for more than just Roku stuff, provided you've got one of those ARC ports on your television. Now, above the ARC port on my TV here, you'll see an option for digital audio out. And if for some reason your television doesn't have ARC on its HDMI, it likely will have an optical audio out. And this supports that as well. And they even give you the optical cable in the box. And if you see right here, there is a plug there for that optical cable, and you can get it working that way as well. Now, if your TV does not have an HDMI ARC connector or the optical connector, then it's only going to give you sound through the speaker when you're in Roku mode. But I think for most people, you should be able to get your audio going through the sound bar with one of those 2 options. Now, again, this does work with 4K televisions. It will support HDR color, but it does not support Dolby Vision. The other thing to keep in mind with this, especially if you have an older 4K TV, is that it requires HDCP 2.2 copy protection to be supported on the television that you're connecting it to. And if it doesn't support that, it's only going to work in 1080p mode. Now, some TVs support HDCP 2.2 on all of their ports, but others do not. Sometimes it's just one port that supports that, and some TVs don't support it at all. So what you need to do is connect it up and then have the Roku detect your display. If it doesn't find the HDCP 2.2 and it's only running at 1080p, my advice would be to try all of the HDMI ports on the television until it does work. But there's a good chance that if you don't have HDCP 2.2 at all on the television, the best you're going to get out of this is 1080p. Now there's one other port worth mentioning on the back here, which of course is the USB port next to the HDMI connector. And you can use this port to connect up a hard drive or a flash drive with media on it. You can play audio, video, or photos on the Roku interface through that port. This also supports Ethernet adapters that are compatible with the Roku device. Unfortunately, I don't have a compatible Ethernet adapter here in the studio. I've got a bunch of these little USB to Ethernet adapters, but none of them worked. So you're going to want to check with Roku to see what's compatible. And if you're having trouble with Wi-Fi, Ethernet is often the best way to go. But the Wi-Fi support on this I found to be just fine. I was able to play some 4K movies from Disney Plus without any problems as I was testing things. So if you've got a decent Wi-Fi signal near your television, I think this will do just fine. And because it's not tucked behind the TV like some of those little sticks can be, I think this should be better than those are for the most part, given that it'll be kind of centered in your environment there. So all in, good Wi-Fi signal quality on this one. The power goes in here. It's got a nice long power cable, and of course it will put itself into standby mode when you shut things off. And it will also turn off your TV when you turn off the soundbar too, which can be pretty convenient. On the back here, you also have two mounting holes for attaching it to a wall or some other piece of furniture if you want. It doesn't give you any mounting hardware beyond these two holes, but it should be pretty easy to mount this someplace if you need to do that. So the next thing I want to do now is get my monitor out and get it hooked up so you can see what the interface looks like. So let's do that and I'll be right back. All right, here we are on the Roku home screen, and one of the things that I love about Roku is that they support just about every major service that is out there. At the moment, HBO Max is the only service that's not on here, but everything else is, including Apple TV, which is not something that is on a lot of other devices, so it's usually a pretty good place to get most of your favorite services. The remote here is your standard Roku remote. This is a voice remote, so you can do searches by holding down the microphone button. You have a volume control here on the side, so you can go up or down or mute here. And you also, of course, have your shortcut buttons that all of these different services have paid for. One of the things that I've always loved about Roku is that they're largely agnostic as to which channel you should be watching content on. So if I do a voice search here real quick, Star Trek: The Next Generation, it's going to basically just show us where we can watch this content and not push us to one place or the other. So you can see I can watch it on Netflix, Prime, or Hulu with my subscription, or I can buy episodes on these services here. I can browse through all the different seasons as well. So sometimes one season of a show might be on one service versus another. You can kind of drill down that way through the Roku search, which is always pretty nice. Another thing I love about Roku is that they have a real focus on free stuff. And if you go to Featured Free, you can browse through a lot of content that they're offering on their platform. They have a Roku channel, but also a number of other platforms here. So as you can see, as we scroll through here, we've got some free stuff on NBC. There's the Roku channel. TLC Go has something up here. And you can really find hours upon hours of both recorded and live content that you can watch for free, usually ad-supported, just by going into that featured free section. And of course, a lot of the free providers like Pluto and others are available on here too. Now, there is a lot more depth to the Roku platform. We've done a whole video on it, so definitely check it out because there's a lot of cool things you can do with a Roku, and this is a Roku after all, and there's a lot of features that we're not going to get to in the time that we have for this video. Now, there are some settings related to audio on this device that I wanted to show you before we finished up here. So we're going to go to Settings and over to Audio. And if you are someone or know someone who has a problem hearing dialogue on the TV, the speech clarity section here is where you're going to want to adjust some settings. So when it's off, it actually sounds pretty good because you've got the advantage of these very loud speakers. And if that isn't solving the clarity problem for you, You can make some adjustments here in the speech clarity section. Low and high are the two options, and you'll have to experiment to see which one works best for you. But I found that both settings, when I was watching a few movies earlier, really had the dialogue pop out at me when I adjusted those settings. But that sometimes comes at the cost of other audio in the film that you're watching. So you'll want to go in and adjust this based on what your particular circumstances are, but it's good to see that here. There isn't much, though, for other audio settings. So if we go over to sound mode here, you really only have 4 options. You've got bass off, bass boost, normal, or reduce bass. And to be honest, I didn't hear that much of a difference in bass as I was playing around with these different settings. There's not a lot of bass built into this, so perhaps if we had the subwoofer attached, that might be a way to adjust things a bit more. But generally, there wasn't much, again, of a noticeable difference between these different settings. They also have another mode here that can level the audio, and this might be something to do if you've got a TV show that you're watching that's very low and then all of a sudden a loud commercial comes on. It will level the audio out so it doesn't jolt you when that commercial gets on the air. That might be something to set. There's also a night mode here which will prevent an explosion in a movie or something from waking up the whole house. It'll kind of keep the audio at a reasonable level for night watching as well. I have mine set to off, but if these are things that you think might be helpful to you, you've got the options there. But that's pretty much it. Not a lot of audio control on here. It's pretty basic transportation when it comes to a sound bar, but I do think it could really help folks who have issues hearing the TV and give you the ability to greatly enhance the intelligence of your television if it's getting dumber and dumber the older it gets. So overall, a really nice product here from Roku. Probably not as loud and room-filling as their larger soundbar, but I think it's going to be something a lot of people will find very useful. That's going to do it for now. Until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold level supporters Brian Parker, Jim Peter, Tom Albrecht, and Chris Allegretta. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to lon.tv/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit lon.tv/s.